A note came from the Northcraft asking how certain circumstances should be handled, and that's when where an individual will come to soon dispatch, is that what it is? And ask the individuals to take a person off of the run. Now, do you all remember what the procedure is when you ask somebody? Do you have a procedure to ask to be taken off of a duty? I don't think they can hear your heads right.
No. The answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay, everybody's shaking their head no. Okay, the right procedure is what? Anybody?
To state the problem, but not give a solution.
Right. To give the reason why there's a question, and then let the
Which
people...
would be stating the problem.
Right.
Right.
Now, I don't know, it doesn't matter who it is that did this, but what you want to do is to realize that it isn't, let me say this, that if you were in the next level and you asked to be taken off of something, I'm afraid it would be a long time before you would ever be given something again. So it's extremely important that you understand that you don't do things like this, because it shows that there's a certain humanness here. Now, let's say that you have something coming up and you don't know how you can handle it. And so, again, you would present the problem to them and say, I'm supposed to be on lab duty at this time, and yet I'm down for a run. How should I handle that? Because you shouldn't get off of lab duty to go on a run unless nobody else is available. That gives the person on dispatch the opportunity to say, well, we'll just have to handle the lab because we have no one else to do this run. In other words, you want to learn how to handle things the way members of the next level handle it, not by asking to be taken off of something. Once you begin to think in terms like that, then there's something wrong with you as an individual. In other words, it doesn't mean that it's wrong in a way that, in other words, your thinking has gotten off of the track, and you need to reevaluate things and see where you are, and see what in the world is happening to me that I am beginning to think like that. In other words, that's a backward motion, not a forward motion. So let me state the procedure again, that nobody has no one should ever ask to be taken off of the task. Not in this late in the game, unless they, well, there's no unless. They must discuss it with the persons involved, like if it's a dispatch thing or if it's a lab thing. You just can't present it in a way that you want to be taken off. This is simply that. Okay, you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't think so. Except maybe we'll talk a little bit about what we were talking about a little bit ago that was stimulated a little bit by Liv Odie's leaving, and we were discussing with the ones here at the retreat how it's very difficult for us to understand how someone could personally tolerate the internal pain or guilt of leaving the class in the manner that Liv Odie did. and not that it's any different from how many others have left, but we feel like it should be different. What we were saying was, if we feel like you're so, that you have all become such good people, just to put it on a people basis, that it would be very hard for you to struggle and to live with the feelings that you know your classmates and your teachers might have upon your just disappearing with X number of belongings and PPS and so forth, without just simply saying, I want to leave. Now, we discussed within the T and Dove said for a long time, if someone wanted to leave the class, please let us know. It's obvious that that won't happen, and or isn't likely to happen. And we can understand why a student may not want to face a confrontation with Lynx, and to have Lynx see them in that mental frame of mind, or have Lynx ask them a question of why are you doing this? And so we're saying that if it occurs to any others, if they feel like they can't take any more, or whatever it is that might cause them to mentally be in a position where they want to drop their position in the class and leave, we're telling you now that you don't have to tell Lynx, and Lynx will not ask you any questions if you will just simply let your craft know, or some statutory people in your craft, and like even if they, according to procedure, get in touch with Lynx and say, how can we help this individual? We won't put you in any embarrassing situation where they will ask you questions of, do you know what you're doing, or why are you doing it, or where you're going, or anything. Lynx will ask you no questions, your classmates will ask you no questions, except how can we help you do what it is that you've decided that you want to do. But this brings up a topic that T and I were talking about earlier today, that since it's so strong in our own thinking, and we have vehicles of the same crude vibrations of your vehicles. I mean, we didn't get any special ones. Neither one of us are virgin births, you know. You know what I mean by that? So we don't have any half genes from the next level and half human genes. We had this. The point we're making is, now maybe a long time ago, there might have been a point where this vehicle could bombard my next level mind with thoughts of guilt on wasting my human life. You understand? In other words, it could have said, look, you're just sitting here, you've been sitting here all this time, you could be back you could make a contribution, you know, to the world. Are you making any contribution here, just making salads? And, you know, is this, in other words, the vehicle could talk that way. And it's possible that guilt could come in. Let's say that an individual might feel extremely guilty regarding their children, or something that would hit them as responsibility that they should be doing, that's more worthwhile than the responsibility that they're doing here. And we can understand that a long time ago. But to me and to T, that's turned over now. The koan has turned over to the point that I would have so much guilt in relationship to the next level. Even whatever the next level is, let's say that I slip into such a period of doubt that I'm not sure what the next level is, I'm not sure where they are, or what kind of spacecraft they have, or I'm not even sure I'll ever see it. But could I tolerate the guilt of not taking advantage of what I have been lucky enough to be a recipient of. Now, take Ti and Do out of the picture, if you can. We have been the tools, true, of your getting a lot of understanding of next level ways, and which has in turn given you a perspective of the human kingdom and this world that you could have never had any other way. And from a purely intellectual point of view, you've been extremely lucky. I mean, there are thousands of humans out there, believe it or not, that would give anything to have the perspective that you have. Though they may not know it at the moment, but if they had that perspective, that they could see the world as you see it, and see how, if you stay in the human kingdom, habits and traits and ways, that you can get your head above the water to see things for what they are. Now, therefore, if I have been lucky enough to receive that kind of information, then I wouldn't be able to tolerate the guilt of not carrying out my responsibility for being the recipient of that, of doing the best I can do as one who has received that. Am I making sense to you? The guilt wouldn't be toward the world. The guilt would be toward whoever it is that gave me this information. I'm not, here again, it's not Ti and Do. We didn't give to, we didn't get it. I mean, it didn't come from us. We were lucky enough, as you were lucky enough, to be the recipient. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is very, very hard. It's impossible for us at this point, when you have sat around long enough and worked on your genes all these years, to the point that if you have been receptive at all, enough osmosis should have taken place that you would find yourself extremely fortunate. Now, we can understand extreme difficulty with boredom at times. We can understand getting tired of doing the kind of tasks that you do. We know that the tests of that kind of boredom and repetition of doing those tasks and seemingly having not a very significant role to play, we can understand how that is a very difficult test. And the enduring of tests like that is very, very tough and strengthens you very, very well. Because it's like, for a period, for example, when this vehicle had to be jailed for that period of time, it was very, very rough, just from the standpoint of that confinement, and there was nothing to do. There weren't even cards to play. You know, there was nothing to do, and yet I benefited tremendously by that experience, because it was a time for a lot of examination and acceleration and preparation for being a tool for the next level in this way. So what I'm saying is, even if you had to look at this part of your classroom experience almost as a jail experience, even though there are no locks on the door, but your activity is kind of confined. Even if you had to look at it in the worst light as that, which we can understand that being difficult, that part of the test, once you have passed that, is going to open all kinds of doors to you. Now you keep thinking, well, when is it going to open those doors? And even now, Ti and I are beginning to see ways that might, if we have to stay here a little longer, we can see ways that there might be considerable more activity that could be more enjoyable than the type of activity that you presently have, even though we can't at this moment tell you much about it. But the point is, in order to leave the class, I have to have made up my mind that there's going to be nothing but this from here on out. Do you see what I'm saying? Nothing but this kind of repetition of the same activity from here on out. And yet I can't really very logically think that, because how fast has everything changed? You know, you're never in a circumstance where within a 6 months to a year the whole picture hasn't changed. Because of growth, because of change, the whole picture changes. And it changes rapidly. And it's going to change even more rapidly if we're still here. And that's as it should be. And as you become more responsible, more on solid ground, that you're dependable to check yourself constantly, am I doing the most right thing? Am I taking the choice, the safest choice in this action? Am I using a check partner? Am I not listening to negative things? You know, the more you become, that you do those things automatically, the more responsible you become, so that you're more trustworthy in the next level. And we've told you from the beginning, all we're trying to do is to try to help you be trustworthy, so that when you are in the next level, given tasks, they don't have to worry about your moods or your faltering, or that all they're worried about is teaching you the task that needs to be accomplished, and that your attention will be right there, eager and ready. Part of the reason I think sometimes that you have such long periods of boredom is to whet the appetite for activity. Do you see what I'm saying? And in a sense, that shouldn't be muted. It should be controlled, but not muted. And it's perfectly normal for you to want more interesting activity for the next level. Great Scott, T and I crave something more. And that's okay. But we're not going to do anything as an alternative, foolish, like throw the knowledge away that we have. And it's, whether you like it or not, the most accurate term that you could place on what you know is intelligent knowledge, not what humans would call intelligence, because of the fancier words that you might be able to use. But it's in what you have learned. You've got to know. You've got to have an understanding in your brain. You've got to have a clear understanding of what it is that you're doing, and therefore it's an intelligent approach to conduct and activity. Do you see what I'm saying? And you've all got to know that that's what it is. Just by being good, obedient, really doesn't make you a really good member of the next level. In order to be a servant of the next level, you've got to know where the information that you've received, you've got to know how to put it into action. And you've got to know how to perform when called upon to perform, and knowing that your performance, you will maintain the ways of the next level. Now that doesn't mean you may, that you'll know the skill that you might be called upon to do, because you'll have to taught that skill. You'll have to be taught that skill. I don't know what I said, I got my tongue twisted. But you will know how to approach being taught. You'll know the attitude to maintain. Do you understand what we're saying? Now, I don't know if this sounds as significant to you all as it does to T and W. But it's, in fact, your frame of mind should be now that this place is, it's very difficult for me to exist in this place because there's so little to do. Why is there so little to do? Because the next level can't give us much to do of the kind of work they would do in this environment. You see what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with getting bored with this place or finding it difficult to exist in this place. It's very difficult to exist in this place. But there's something wrong with not becoming proud of what you have learned. So, I mean really a kind of pride of feeling lucky to be the recipient of this kind of information and being a possible significant tool for whatever we call it, the next level. They may giggle at us if our brain is still computing next level when we see other older members, and they may give us something more appropriate to refer to them about, but it's not going to matter. Do you see what we're saying? But the thing that we want you to do is to question whether or not you are slipping into lethargy or something less than pride in what you are becoming and the change that has taken place in you. You know, when I used to be threatened with my vehicle saying, I'll go back and make a significant place. I'm talking about a long time ago. If I let that tape play for a little while, and I saw what I would become if I were back in the world, if I listened to that tape that long until it got to the point where I could actually see the world I would slip back into, the kind of activity that filled my day, it was nauseating to me. It was nauseating to me. And, you know, you're also...
It's very boring, though.
Talk about boredom. That's right. At least, I mean, it's nauseating to me now. It wasn't nauseating to me then because I was ignorant. But I'm no longer ignorant. You see what I'm saying? I have been given a perspective to look back, and as I see that life for what it was, I can't imagine ever again being pleased with that kind of life. So there's no place for me in the world. Do you see? There's not even a place for me as separateness, which some of these classmates of yours who have left your classroom, I think they have made up their mind that I don't want to go back in the world, but I don't want to stay in the classroom for whatever reason that they've said they don't want to stay in the classroom. And they think they're going to go make a third place out here for themselves someplace, trying to apply what they've learned in the classroom. I don't know where that third place is. I don't know.
I wish I could figure out what it is.
I don't know where that. I can't even logically discover where a third place is, because there's not going to be additional forward motion in it, because you'll be isolated. Do you see what we're saying? It's like being willing to remain a sixth grader and hoping that you can hang on to sixth grade without anybody even, because everybody around you, they don't even know sixth grade. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like if you finish the sixth grade and all these other grades still ahead for you, but you left the classroom at the sixth grade, you can't even hang on to sixth grade, because you're going to go out where nobody's reached first grade. And so this should have dawned on you by now, intelligently. You see what I'm saying? Now, we're not preaching any sermons to you. This is not a classroom lesson. This is an attempt to help you establish your own mind enough to see how fortunate you are and how it wouldn't be worth it. Let's say you falter and you feel bad in the classroom because you've got such bad vibrations, or you're having such bad thoughts. Is it worth it to stop at that point just because you are dealing with something, rather than sticking it out and seeking help and getting past that point of dealing with it? We're just talking about it from an academic standpoint. We don't have to use any next level terminology. But is it actually worth it? Let's say I'm dealing with
wanting to be free. I want to go, just be able to go. You know, can I just go someplace, you know, catch a bus, or stick my thumb in the air? Is it worth it to throw all that's ahead for you, which your experience should have told you what steps you have passed through up to this point? Is it willing to throw the possible steps that are ahead for you away just in order to do that little thing?
That will grow old.
That will get old in no time. It wouldn't take much of anything to get past that. Or if it's, you know, if I just had that bottle of booze, or that, whatever it is, or if I just had some love relationship with somebody, it would take no time for you to see through that as ridiculous. And you should be at the point now where you can see through that and realize that whatever it is you're dealing with is just a period when you're having difficulty getting a grasp. And just stick it out through that period and seek help through that period. But why throw it away and cut yourself off?
Why quit a job after, just because you had a little bit of trouble?
Yes, or because the growing is rough. It's been rough all along. Lessons are rough. The pattern of growth is suffering. It's that simple. It gets to be more refined suffering only because you become more capable of rising above the suffering. That's the only reason it gets, actually the suffering gets more intense and more difficult if you aren't, as each step of suffering comes along, if you aren't preparing yourself to rise above that suffering and take advantage of it better, then it gets impossible to handle. You see what we're saying? But if you are handling the suffering each time it comes your way, the difficulty, then the more you get experience at handling it, the more refined the suffering experience becomes, because you become a better individual who knows how to handle that difficult experience. Because you can, even as the difficulty is there, you can, like sometimes T and I will say to each other when things really seem difficult, we say, boy, there's really something good around the corner. It wouldn't be so terrible now. And we know it's fact. We know it's fact that when it is really terrible now, it's only because when we get past it and take advantage of what it is that's coming our way, it will be a major step forward.
What you want to do is to develop the ability to realize that what you're going through isn't worth quitting the job.
No matter what it is.
No matter what it is. And of course you have the freedom to quit, just like we've told you before. But you don't, what you want to do is grow to where you don't feel like you have to throw it all away. What I can understand here, if you believe that when we said that you are from the next battle, and if you flunk this, then you will go back as a failure. I don't understand how that can be taken so lightly with some of these individuals who have quit. Now we've had 2 students leave since they knew that. And I don't understand why they, well, the only thing I can think of is that they forgot who they are.
Yeah, and we're even saying, if you could forget that, I can't understand what it is that's so good out there that it could actually tempt you. I really can't, after what you should know by now, I can't see that you can go find something that's worth throwing this class away.
The thing of it is, let's say you go out on the craft and you leave the trip. You go, you have yourself a job, you work in the job, you get off the job, you have to come home, you have to prepare yourself an experience, you have to buy your groceries, you have to do your own laundry, and then if you take on a relationship with somebody, you have to put up with their foolishness.
You have to start compromising everything.
And they're not going to have the same standards that you have. either you're going to have to come down to their level, or you're going to have to bring
Great
them up.
relationships every other day.
Right. You certainly can't bring them up to your level. And in other words, in my mind, you're stepping into something far worse than what you're dealing with in the craft. And you're with individuals who are going through the same thing that you're going through.
Now this is practical thinking. We're not trying to talk anybody out of, if they, in other words, we feel that you should naturally.
You are learning how to get in control of those vehicles. You're doing everything you can to make your minds grow so that they will be in more control of the vehicle than your human brain is in control of the vehicle. And we are here to assist you. Now, all that we have told you, that Joe has just mentioned to you, this is how you should be acting. It's just like you would, like as a new graduate RN, you go in and change a baby's diaper in the nursery, and the nurse who has been there much longer comes in and sees that you didn't pin the diaper right. Would it be right for her to say, to allow you to continue to pin the diaper in the wrong way? Or would it be more right for her to say, this is how you do it?
Or wouldn't it even be more right for you as a student to say, is this the way?
Right way?
This would be more right. So then she wouldn't have to tell you. Your initiative should be, is this the way I should have been? Do you see?
Now this is what you should start doing now. You should be questioning yourself. Am I thinking right? There must be something wrong with my thinking, because my thinking is making me think that I want to walk out the door. And in other words, you shouldn't assume that the way you are thinking something is absolutely right.
Or my thinking is making me too vulnerable to negativity, or too vulnerable to bombardment, or whatever it is. But if you're questioning yourself more and more, then you are taking the responsibility, and we are having to do less of the responsibility. It's like the example T used of the new graduate nurse who goes in. She may do what seems to be a very mundane task, putting these diapers on these little babies in the nursery. And she probably thinks, good, not all those years I did. And yet she should have an extreme amount of pride. I'm not in the classroom back there. I'm RN. You know, I'm a registered nurse. So she has pride in the fact that she has gone through all that training and schooling, even though that she knows that she's not exactly sure even whether or not this was the correct way to pin that diaper on. And it is her responsible place to say, was this the right way to do it? In other words, as we grow, as you grow, we want, as you do things, for you first to question yourself thoroughly. Is that the most right thing I could have done? Was that the safest thing for us to do? After you've questioned, then question us, so that we don't have to examine you and bring it to your attention. And then, like, in a sense, almost like putting you down because we're having to correct you. We wouldn't have to correct you had you brought that question to us in the beginning. Can you follow that? And that's the way you're going to have to perform in the next level. They're going, older members are going to wait for you to say, was this the right thing to do? Unless they see you're about to mess something up good. But hopefully you're going to get to the point where you don't do things without a check partner and without checking it out with whoever is in a supervisory capacity at what you're doing and knowing that it's the right decision of what you're making.
The most important thing is whenever you are bombarded with something, the first day that you are bombarded, don't let yourself go to sleep that night until you have worked something out. In other words, let's use Cambodia for example. She wrote us a letter, a report after she got back from her trip, telling us how glad she was to be back. And she didn't like anything in the human world. I don't know if one from the South Class read it or not, but she talked about how happy she was to be back in the craft. She said in the note she left to us yesterday, that as soon as she wrote that report, she felt like she was bombarded. Now, she didn't say with what, but let's say that she was bombarded with doubt, that she really felt like what she wrote was right. In other words, I'm making this up because I don't know. But let's say that she wrote and said she didn't like the world. But then let's say that she really began to be bombarded with the fact that she did like the world. You see what I'm saying? And so she had conflict. So the right way a member of the next level, the way the member of the next level would handle it, the way you should handle it, would be to write a note to Lynx immediately and say, you know, something's crazy here. As soon as I wrote that note to you, saying that I didn't like it, I began to have a bombardment saying that you're lying. I do like the world. I loved every moment that I was out traveling. How should I handle that circumstance? But instead, this stayed with her so long until, it's been every bit of 2.5 weeks. And what happened, it pushed her out the door. Then she didn't handle that the way a member at the next level should have handled it.
And the time that she let that difficulty brood with her in the craft subjected you all to all kinds of mental harassment, subconsciously. I'm not sure you all realize, I know what it's dealt us. And the moment she actually walked out that door, it just was a tremendous relief. And don't take that wrong. But if there's something that we can't explain, that is a connection between a mind that is in that much conflict and has not conquered that conflict, that rubs off and does real detriment to the classmates and the teachers in a circumstance like this. Now this is the reason why T says try before you go to sleep to not let yourself go to sleep until you have licked that negativity or whatever it is that you have dealt with. But does that mean if you didn't get rid of it before you went to sleep, that's grounds for throwing the baby out with the bathwater or whatever it is, just throwing it all away? It's not that, it's for Liv-Odie's sake that we're so sad. It's not that we're sad to lose Liv-Odie, it's we're sad that Liv-Odie has lost. Can't you see that? We don't have that kind of personal feeling. It isn't to the way of the next level to have that kind of personal tie that we are sorry to have lost Liv-Odie. We're so sorry that Liv-Odie had lost. Can you understand that?
And we would feel that way if any of you are.
Yes, it's...
we don't miss people. We won't miss Liv-Odie. What we do, we feel badly for what she has given up because we know that the choice she made wasn't worthy of what she chose.
Of what she threw away.
She threw away much more. But you all have got to grow to know this so that when you get ready when you are being bombarded, you will be able to see that it isn't worth throwing up your work. It's like going through medical school and your internship, and right before you graduate from the internship, or let's say medical school, because you have to take a state board. Let's say that after you take your state board, after going through medical school, when you graduate from medical school, you never take state board. You just say, I'm sorry, I don't want to go any further than this. And the 4 years of medical school is like hell. And you've had to study so that you never knew that so much had to be crammed into your brain in that 4 years' time. And in a sense, you all have had a ton of, you all have worked so hard to accomplish your task, and it's like quitting before you take state board. And it's foolish to throw it.
And your class has been more difficult and to adjust to and to accept and to attain than medical school they could ever think about.
Agreed.
You see what we're saying? And so it just doesn't make any sense to just be willing to, even if I was so overcome with momentary doubt that I lost sight of everything, I couldn't imagine thinking that I was wise enough to judge what I had learned as untrue, and saying that what is true is there. In other words, let's say that as a period of extreme doubt you think that all of this doesn't make any sense, which I can't imagine that, but let's say you can think that all of this doesn't make any sense. I don't know how you could throw away the chance of it making sense, if you can understand that. I don't see how you're willing to, because you should, even when you think it doesn't exist, you should be able to think, but I could be wrong. You see what I'm saying? It could be true. Do you see what I'm saying? And am I willing? Is there something out there so important that I'm willing to cut myself off from that could be true at my worst moment of doubt? We've been through that with you before, and I'm sure you have all experienced that in your own suffering. Probably many times you've been at the brink, and or what appeared to be the brink, and probably there were brinks that were bigger than previous brinks. But that has helped you if you have taken advantage of it. It has given you depth. It has given you a capacity for a greater comprehension of the next level of knowledge and performance and the way to the next level.
Now you might wonder why they were talking to you about this. And it would be that if the task that you are faced with, I mean, if you are given the task to go visit your family, that may be a breeze for you, but it's when you come back that may be the most difficult.
In other words, a little while after you've been back and things get rough again, that's where we knew, I think we've been told on tape here recently, that and this was before Libodi left, we said the real test would not be upon going home. That might be a minor test, but a more major test would be after coming back. And if you went home and it seemed to enlighten certain things in your thinking that hadn't been sparked for some time, or the joy of freedom, because the most difficult thing you have to deal with is not being able to do what you want to when you want to. You know, this freedom element. And that's a really tough thing to do. So you come back from having gone home on that, and then things get rough for you, or there becomes a test period. That would be where it would be more critical. And we knew that a short time after Libodi got back, the real test would come, and it did.
What's funny, does that in about 3 weeks after you leave, after you come back, you'll probably be troubled. And sure enough, within 3 weeks, we was out the door, you know. So this is why you should take this tape and listen to it very carefully many, many times and prepare yourself for the test that's coming ahead. Remember, you are a graduate. You are not a student any longer. It's as simple as that. And question yourself to see how you handle things. Don't allow bombardment to stay with you very long. If it stays more than 1 day, you get a note off to Luce right away and say, can you help me? But try first to ask the next level to lift it from you for right now until you become stronger. It'll come back later, but at least it'll let up and give you a chance to catch your breath and become a little stronger. And so this is the purpose of our talking to you. We don't suspect any of you to walk out the door. That isn't the purpose of our talking to you, because we don't want to convince anybody to stay.
Trying to just help you help yourself in realizing more how to be the recipient of what you've received, how to be on solid ground with it. You know, one
good thing that most of you have, even genetically, in your vehicles, is that something in the vehicle likes to be exceptional. Nearly everybody has in their genes a desire to be above the mass, and you could tap on that to a great sense of pride in how fortunate you are to have been able to come upon and be the recipient of information that has taken you so above the mass and to such exceptional way of thinking beyond anyone's imagination.
Prior to our coming on this trip, I thought I had a good life. Prior to beginning this, I thought my life was just about as good as anybody could have, and I believed those felt the same way. But I can tell you one thing, that what I am doing now, I feel like it is something that far surpasses anything that I had prior to coming and beginning this task. In other words, it's because of my being assigned to this task. It is because of the purpose. Now, the vehicle, mind you, was in the world. The mind that is in this vehicle was not. It has taken over this vehicle just like you are taking over those vehicles. And so in a sense, the vehicle right now is talking to you. In other words, the vehicle likes it better. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it's because the mind has grown enough that the vehicle likes it. Now,
even the vehicle can appreciate the advantage of this kind of role that you're playing.
In other words, the thought of the vehicle, there aren't anything like the vehicle isn't ever in any difficulty of wanting to go back into the world to do things that it never had done. The thing that it has trouble with is trying to do a good enough job at this time, whether or not we can accomplish what we have to do. In other words, the vehicle has translated over to what the mind is built of, if you can understand it. And yours can do the same thing. I can't think of a single thing in this world that this vehicle wants to do other than do this task.
Yes, wants to do this task, wants to hopefully do a good job of it.
And yet this task has made me more tense, given me more stress, I've shed more tears, and worried more than I ever have in this whole lifetime. So it certainly isn't
tough.
the
It takes a toll.
circumstances. You see what I'm saying? It isn't the circumstances. It's the fact that the task is the thing that I appreciate.
It's because T has accepted the knowledge given to her enough to appreciate the task. Just as we're hoping that you have sense enough to appreciate what you have been fortunate enough to be the recipient of.
Now, Joe started out by saying that, I don't know if you all remember this, but he said there are some things coming down, and there are some things coming down. We don't have enough information right now, but we feel like in the very near future there will be a change of some sort. Now, whether or not it involves you all directly or indirectly, or what?
Or immediately.
Or immediately, we don't know because we don't have all the facts. But I do know that it can be extremely important. Now, anything that the next level gives for us to do at this time, we feel like it's important. Well, any time we've ever given to us. But this is even more so because we feel like it may involve more than just the class. And that's about all we can say because we're not sure of it totally since we don't have all the answers, all the information. But the main thing, we want you all to prepare yourself for whatever's ahead. And you can prepare yourself by trying to practice what this page has given to you, what we have tried to give to you in this page. Try to get your vehicle to love the ways of the next level, like we do. Like, I know no other way.
Yeah, you can't tell the vehicle now, love it, love it,
No.
love it. You know, that doesn't work. But if you have understood, if you have received, if you have accumulated what you have been given and put it in a perspective to see how valuable it is, it would automatically make you have just an unbelievable amount of love and appreciation for those who gave you this information. And I'm not talking about these girls.
In other words, there wouldn't be a single human that could make you turn your eyes off of this task if you were where you should be at this time. In other words, if you see somebody at your task that you might get a little bit friendly with, and then you back off and you realize, my gosh, how did I do that? You know, were you wrong? Were you off the track by getting friendly? In a sense, you weren't, because what happened? You were given the opportunity to experience something like that, but then you checked yourself afterwards.
That didn't
You
mean to be
realize-
right to do it again.
No.
It meant that you were given an opportunity to become stronger in that way.
In other words, you were aware that you could do that, but you caught yourself. It's just like we go out sometime and we run across somebody, like today, for instance, we were at a store looking at some blouses and all, seeing what we could get on sale, you know, and this lady came up. I mean, here I was, the rack where the blouses were. She comes right up and starts almost pulling the blouses out of my hand. And I said, would you like for me to move? You know. And she said, oh no, that's okay. You know. But I really felt like hitting her on the head, you know, or kicking her in the shin or something, but I didn't do it. But immediately I caught myself. You know, my first impulse was to be a little bit ugly, you know. And this is how you want to do. When you feel yourself begin to respond, you want to catch yourself and not really respond.